Carl Jung didn't write this as a dramatic warning to scare you. He wrote it as a mirror you can either have the courage to look into, or spend your entire life avoiding. The truth is, most people never truly own themselves. They think they do. They walk around with the illusion of control, telling themselves they're steering their own lives. But peel back the layers, strip away the pride, the constant distractions, the masks we wear, and you'll often find something else entirely. You'll see people living lives dictated by habits they never consciously chose, obeying expectations they've never questioned, haunted by voices in their heads that sound like their own, but are really echoes from someone else's script. They're not truly living. They're performing for approval, performing for love, performing for safety, and the saddest part, the script they're acting out wasn't even written by them. It was written by parents, by teachers, by ex-lovers, by childhood trauma, by fear. And now, without even knowing it, they reenact it daily, automatically, while calling it life. Jung had a name for the part of ourselves we exile, the shadow. These are the pieces we reject, abandon, or pretend never existed. But here's the thing, nothing you push away disappears. It hides, and while it hides, it controls you. Silently, invisibly. It makes your decisions. It chooses your relationships. It guides your reactions. It shapes your life from the dark, without asking your permission. So here's the uncomfortable question. How much of you is really yours? How much of your personality is authentic? And how much is just a survival costume? When Jung said until you own yourself, you'll be owned by others, he meant this. Until you face the parts of you you'd rather avoid, the insecure, reactive, jealous, ashamed, needy, fearful parts. Someone else will always have the strings. You'll be owned by the people who know how to trigger you. Owned by the roles you feel trapped in. Owned by every voice in your head that tells you to explain, defend, prove, and the cruelest twist. You won't even realize you're being controlled. You'll just call it who I am. That's the invisible prison. The one you carry with you everywhere. Escaping that prison isn't easy. You don't wake up one morning suddenly in full possession of yourself. You earn it. You reclaim every inch of yourself you abandoned just to be accepted. Every opinion you swallowed. Every truth you softened. Every emotion you buried to fit in. And that process, it's brutal. Because owning yourself means confronting everything you've avoided. Your rage, your jealousy, your addictions, your false humility, your fear of being unseen. It means admitting that a lot of your kindness came from fear, not love. That your silence often came from shame, not strength. That your personality was shaped more by pain than purpose. When you see that clearly, something inside either breaks or wakes up. Because once you recognize what owns you, you can't unsee it. The question becomes, what are you going to do about it? Most people run. They drown themselves in distractions. They get louder, busier, more impressive on the surface, anything to avoid sitting in that discomfort. But distraction doesn't heal the shadow, it feeds it. If you choose to stay, to sit with that discomfort, to look straight into the mirror without looking away, something shifts. You start catching yourself in mid-performance. You hear the false voice in your head and begin replacing it with your own. Bit by bit, you start reclaiming yourself, not the curated, polished, Instagram-worthy self. The real one, the version that doesn't need applause to feel worthy. The one that doesn't dance for approval. The one that stops reacting to every little trigger. People notice. You speak less, but your words carry more weight. You stop explaining yourself. You stop defending yourself. You stop playing the game entirely. And that presence, quiet, unshakable, changes the room when you walk in. It rewrites the dynamics. It makes some people uncomfortable, not because you're cruel, but because you're free. You're no longer owned by fear, by other people's opinions, by the hunger to be understood. The only thing you belong to now is yourself. And that kind of power doesn't shout. It doesn't need to, it just is. When you own yourself, the world treats you differently. They stop testing you and start respecting you. Your silence no longer reads as weakness. It's understood as choice. You're not reacting from a fractured self anymore. You're moving from a whole one, and wholeness is rare. Rare. And magnetic. Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who the world told you to be, not the mask you wore to survive, but the real you underneath the noise, the fear, the conditioning. And when you get there, you become untouchable. No one can shame you for what you've already embraced. No one can manipulate what you've already owned. No one can control a person who has nothing to hide from themselves. So, next time you feel triggered, ask, who's responding right now? Is it the real me, or is it the version I created to survive? Because if you're not choosing, something else is choosing for you. That's what it means to be owned. But that ends the moment you decide to become your own master. The truth is, most people spend their lives building personalities that protect them, not reveal them. What you call me might actually be a defense mechanism. It might be the safest version of yourself that could survive the world you grew up in. And Jung warned us people will do almost anything to avoid facing their own soul. We build walls, we wear masks, we fill every empty moment with noise. Because the truth, under all that, terrifies us. Why? Because the truth is raw. The truth is, you've been living for others. You've been addicted to being liked, accepted, approved. And now, without those roles, you're not sure who you are. That's the ownership Jung was talking about. As long as your identity is tied to someone else's reaction, you're not free, you're rented. You belong to the applause. You belong to the people you fear losing. You belong to the past that shaped you. But the moment you stop running, the moment you sit in that fire, everything begins to change. You see your triggers as wounds that need healing, not proof that you're broken. You see your habits, the pleasing, the proving, the numbing, for what they really are. Survival tools, not your truth. And suddenly, you wake up. You realize you've been reacting to life, not choosing it. Reacting to old pain. Reacting to rejection. Reacting to fear. But now you see it, and when you see it, you're no longer a slave to it. That's the start of Jung's individuation, becoming whole. Integrating the shadow. Accepting your darkness without letting it consume you. Because your darkness isn't your enemy. It holds your boundaries, your instincts, your no without guilt, your buried strength. Everything you needed to survive is still there. And now, it's time to bring it back, not to lash out from it, but to integrate it, to own it. When you own what once owned you, you become dangerous in the best way. You stop needing to be understood. You stop asking for permission to exist. You can stand alone and still stand tall. And that presence steady.com, unshakable, is impossible to fake. The world can feel it. It disrupts the shallow game of performance that most people are trapped in. Because you've gone deeper, you've earned your authenticity in the fire. You've faced your shame and refused to run. And that kind of authenticity cannot be owned. Jung was right, you don't become free by pretending you're better than others. You become free by no longer being a stranger to yourself. So ask, why do I still feel the need to prove? Why do certain people have the power to ruin my day? Why do I feel guilty for boundaries? Why do I explain myself when no one asked? Those aren't signs of strength. They're signs of fracture. But here's the good news, everything broken can be rebuilt. Every piece you gave away can be taken back. Not in anger, but in truth. Because truth doesn't scream. It stands, and when you live from that place, you stop attracting users. You stop being manipulated by praise. You stop shrinking yourself just to avoid being misunderstood. You become rooted, grounded, clear. People will say you've changed. They'll call you distant, cold, but you're not. You're clear about who you are, what you'll tolerate, what you won't. In that clarity, you find freedom. You stop doing emotional labor for people who refuse to do their own. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You just live fully, honestly, authentically, and that's when you become a threat to systems built on obedience. Because you've cut the strings. That's ownership, not of possessions, but of yourself. The kind of wealth no one can take. The kind of freedom no one can buy. Until you own yourself, you will be owned by others. But the moment you reclaim every broken, beautiful piece of yourself, no one owns you again. Because the greatest war is never with the world, it's with yourself. And winning that war doesn't make you louder. It makes you still. It makes you whole.